Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot. Listen to the people.
Hi, I am Dustin Pickering from Parrot Literary Corner. You know me, your noble and honest host, and I've got exciting news for you. Last anthology, Series 1, The Literary Parrot, did such a great job. We want to continue to provide this community service to our viewers and to our contributors to the program. So please get up and get a copy immediately. You know, if you're in this book, you want to get a copy. If you're not in the book, you want to get a copy and see what we're doing. You want to be excited with us. We want you on this program, and we hope to see you sometime soon on The Literary Parrot. You have to get your hands on this copy. It's amazing. It's an absolutely beautiful anthology meant just for you. Our past guests have been invited back to contribute yet again to this Series 2. We do this quarterly anthology. We will be doing this after our 200 episode milestone. As of this last quarter, we reached 200 episodes, and past that, get up and get a copy immediately. This is the only TV show on earth for creative writers, and our guests are amazing. They're also community activists building from the ground up. This program is for everybody out there who is a creative mind. Order several copies if you can and donate to local libraries. Give them to your friends, cousins, fans, supporters, anybody that you think loves poetry. And it's not just poetry in this book. Remember, this is creative mind. So we have prose, fiction, short stories, essays, artwork, anything you can think of, artistically creative, photographs.
Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot.
Hey guys, welcome to World Inkers Network, episode 241. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. Thanks for watching today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Today we have Larry Jaffe, who is an internationally known and award-winning writer, author, and poet. For his entire professional career, Jaffe has been using his art to promote human rights. He was in the Poet in Residence at the Autry Museum of Western Heritage, a featured poet in Chrysler's Spirit in the Words poetry program, and co-founder of Poets for Peace, now Poets Without Borders, and he helped spearhead the United Nations Dialogue Among Civilizations through Poetry Project, which incorporated hundreds of readings in hundreds of cities globally, using the aesthetic power of poetry to bring understanding to the world. Thanks for joining us today, Larry. I think I should call you El Jaffe, and like you have Spanish El Jefe, El Jaffe, the boss.
Sounds good to me.
So how is life in Florida today?
68 degrees, sunshine.
68 degrees. That's not bad. It's about the same here in Texas, I think. I think we've got a little bit cooler out here, but it's pretty sunny. So my first question would be, probably paying attention to a lot of the news. We had the issue with Afghanistan that happened in this administration. Have there been anything that's really just irked you and also motivated you to fight more for human rights that you've seen on the news lately?
It's basically the lack of coverage on the human trafficking situation.
Mm-hmm.
There are some headlines every once in a while when a big bust happens, but the daily degradation of humanity through these human traffickers is not fully exposed. People think that human trafficking is something that goes on in Asia or goes on in another country or another state when it's going on right in your own community.
Right.
It's a $132 billion industry. I mean, think about how much money they're making selling and reselling people.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that in this our enlightened times, we'd be away from that. But it's a worse situation than ever. The internet, the means of communication have led people who are especially the vulnerable
mm-hmm.
It's a process called grooming. I don't know how familiar you might be with it,
Right.
but a predator goes online, seeks out somebody who's vulnerable, usually in the 12 to 16 age group, and lures them offline into human and sex trafficking. And
Right.
this is going on right in our own neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And the media do not really give it justice. The government, fortunately, there are different task forces, and there's so many volunteers that I work with and talk to, almost on a daily basis, trying to raise awareness about human trafficking. So that's my big concern.
Right.
I certainly have empathy for what's happened in Afghanistan and other countries, but I also am concerned of what's happening in this country.
So, what should parents and even teenagers know concerning this issue with grooming? I mean, how can we strengthen our youth to where they're not as vulnerable to something like that?
It's a perfectly accurate question because they need to know. Our kids need to know. If it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
But what
Absolutely.
happens is they take advantage of somebody who's vulnerable, who's not quote unquote or really not getting love at home.
Right.
A male predator seeks them out. Maybe they posted something like, "I just had a fight with my parents again,"
Mm-hmm.
and the person gives them what they're looking for, which is love and affection. And sometimes it's a cell phone, sometimes it's dresses and clothing, and lures them offline with these gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some key factors. Parents have to monitor what their kids are looking at online. I know there's issues of privacy, but this is not something that can be left up to someone who hasn't experienced the world fully.
Right.
So parents, first of all, have to monitor what their children are looking at, what websites they're visiting,
Mm-hmm.
and keep. I don't want to use the word control, but oversee what content that they're looking at. That's the first thing. The other thing to look at is kids not going to school,
Mm-hmm.
truancy, having gifts that they can't account for. Those are some of the key things. Staying up all night, not getting enough rest or food, are other key things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have a list. I work with a lady named Dottie Laster, who is this wonderful woman in your part of the world, in Texas. She's in
Mm-hmm.
New Braunfels,
Okay.
and she has rescued thousands and thousands of kids. And she's got a list of 55 items for you to look for. And if somebody emails me, we could get that out to them.
Absolutely. So, what is your email that they would reach out to you if they wanted to learn more?
Larry@traffic.me.
Absolutely. So,
Larry@traffic.me.
yeah, we got to keep a watch out. I mean, our young people are especially vulnerable, and this happens in the United States. It happens, all over the world. I mean, it's a really terrible issue, and you wouldn't expect in a developed nation. A lot of people may not expect that, and as you mentioned, like unable to, like gifts that you're unable to account for. That's really interesting because I went through a scenario recently with a romance scammer, and they sent me a gift, of flowers on my birthday, and I thought it was real, So I'm about to turn 41 years old. And I fell for something similar, but not quite nearly as nefarious. But I was vulnerable, and I have a pretty loving community and a great family and everything. So if I can fall for it, imagine what a young teenage girl, sitting in her room, lonely and, not able to connect with her peers. I mean, and her parents may be fighting or something. Who knows? I mean, what could be happening right now to somebody out there who's connected with someone online, and then it's, like you said, too good to be true. Yeah,
this is the most heinous of crimes, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think slavery. So too. Right.
And it's also boys, young boys. And there's another part of this that is so overlooked, which is workers, slave workers who are, are in prison basically, and are just doing work and not getting paid. And that's huge business.
Right.
So, you have to look carefully at what you're buying, and there needs to be more alertness, similar to the non-GMO in food would be, that these products are not made by slaves.
Right.
There are some organizations doing that now. But it's really important that we as consumers look at what we're consuming.
Absolutely. Well, you don't get involved, wrapped into that network of, human rights violations going on. It's terrible. I mean, there's a lot of exploitation. We just take it for granted that we have so much in front of us in the United States, and a lot of other countries, I'm sure, feel the same way, that, they don't necessarily want to monitor what they're buying. They just want to be able to go to the market and, the grocery store and buy whatever. And, we don't think about things like that a lot of times. And it's an uncomfortable reality to face. And I think it's good to bring awareness to that there may be some issues with the food or any other products on the market right now,
Absolutely. Just several years ago, just in our own little town here in Florida, there was a restaurant that had slave labor.
Wow.
They had 15 kitchen and serving personnel were enslaved. They lived in a house no more than 3 blocks from where I live.
Wow.
But you notice something weird about the house when there was barbed wire fencing protecting it.
Wow. Right. You think this would be something that would happen in like a poorly developed nation or an underdeveloped nation, but we do have some serious human rights violations in this country that a lot of people aren't aware of, and I think sex trafficking is horrendous. It's a violation of dignity, of human dignity. And I do think we should pay attention to it and give it some attention, on media attention, and inform the public about what can be done to fight and to be resistant to things like that. I mean, as you mentioned, online interactions should be carefully monitored. I mean, you don't want, your kid stuck in a situation, or anybody's kid stuck in a position where they're, they're in that position of that vulnerability.
Well, Texas has led the way with the anti-soliciting law that makes it a criminal offense to solicit for sex. Florida has one that's coming up for vote very shortly. There's human rights involved in these things that government can play a role in preventing it.
Right. I think definitely legal structures do help protect people, and it's something that our government should be alerted to be paying attention to these issues and try to address them in some way. I'm glad that there's definitely some laws being proposed and moved through and to the legislative, to get something done, to protect people. How do you address this in your writing, in your poetry? What relationship do you see between your poetry and advocating for victims and for promoting the this issue?
Well, one thing I do is I write a newsletter for Dottie.
Okay.
A monthly newsletter. As I started to tell you about her, she's one of very small number of people that are have credentials from the Justice Department to train law enforcement on human trafficking. And I also want to mention that it's Human Rights Month.
Okay. Oh, okay. Right.
So that we should be well aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
There were just some recent. Yeah, there's a human trafficking bill that make paying for sex a felony in Florida. Just looking at scanning some recent headlines.
Mm-hmm. So do you think the arts in general can combat, human rights issues? I mean, a lot of us in the artistic community are very much in favor of, obviously in favor of human rights and protecting the vulnerable and also fighting for those who are in situations that they didn't ask for, like refugees and, things like that, people in those situations.
Well, I think it's imperative as an artist to be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And relevant can include just putting beauty out into a world that sure needs some beauty.
Mm-hmm.
I have dedicated much of my life and my art to human rights, and have a couple of books about it. Do a lot of readings. I do workshops on human trafficking. As a poet, we have a voice, and I think it's important that voice, not to sound too cliche, but speak for the voiceless. I try when I write to get into the person's head that I'm trying to communicate about. I have a new book coming out called "Don't Take Candy from Online Strangers," which just gives voice to the child, to the predator, to the parent, and to the one rescuing them. Maybe at the end of the show, I can read a couple of those.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that after the break. We can read a couple.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's maybe a revival of interest in poetry right now? We had Amanda Gorman reading for the Biden inauguration.
I thought that was amazing. Not only that, she read at the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
How
that
cool
too.
is that?
That is awesome.
I have a lot of. When 9/11 hit, when it hit hard, people really turned to poetry, right?
Right.
We had a revival of readings. That was, I was Los Angeles at the time, and we had more readings than ever before, and packed with people. And the current crisis we're fighting, I don't feel that surge of poetry, to be honest with you.
I think when
I could be wrong.
Right. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think when the human spirit is in travail, people turn to poetry to assuage their pain and their powerlessness. And 9/11, obviously, like, we really felt very powerless as a country. Like, it was the first time ever that we had that kind of attack. And I think the world felt shaken by it too, because we're supposed to be the bastion here of, like, power and democracy, and that's our image to the world, and so it's like a major weak spot, not just for the United States but for the world community at large. I think that was a very scary, and it still resonates within people, obviously.
Yeah, and I totally agree. It was a huge blow to us and our whole way of thinking.
Right.
Today, obviously COVID really affected, we had our local poetry reading, and we stopped doing it. During this, it's like 2 years now at this point. of this insanity and hysteria. There's protocols to follow, and if you follow them, you should be in good shape. But nevertheless, there's a lot of mass hysteria attached to it. A lot of readings have gone online. You're doing what you're doing every week or
every day.
Every day.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
That's right.
So a lot has transmitted online.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing like a live poetry reading, It's just
right.
It's so alive as the audience transforms into poet. Poet goes back to being part of the audience, and people are listening, and
dynamics
there's something very special about that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't translate for me as well. Digitizing
it feels a little drier. Like an online reading feels kind of dry to a certain extent because the reader's just reading, and you're not really involved in the presence of the reader. You're just there listening in, and they read, and they don't there's no real way for applause because most people are on mute. I mean that kind of thing. It's like it's a very different experience.
It's horrible from my point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I love that interaction. I mean, I'm I write for Page and Stage, I guess. At our last reading, I'm out. I walk around the audience reading my work. I crouch down in front of people and whisper poetry in their ears. I love that interaction. It's just a phenomenal feeling.
Right. So very interactive.
Maybe part of what I'm saying is it's been hurt.
Right.
Not being able to do those live readings.
But what do you think people are more reading in isolation? I think a lot of I don't know if book sales would reflect the public's persona or what do you call it, perception of what's being read. I think that I've heard a lot about how there's more readership of poetry now than there has been, especially amongst what we call minorities, African Americans, Hispanics, and people like in those cultures are taking more interest in poetry now than they were before, according to the National Endowment of the Arts. I think I read that.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't. I guess for me, it's that connection, that the live connection really is what spurs me on.
Right. It's fun, and I think there's more energy in a live event than there is in an online reading. It's like I said, I use the word dry. It's feels kind of dry to be online and to be talking, with like listening in, and then you're like almost a voyeur instead of a participant. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think
I like the dynamics of live readings too.
Pardon?
I like the dynamics of live readings as well. I enjoy sitting in and listening and being able to participate and snap and whatever else, and then I'm on the stage at some point. So that's really.
I think you're right. Any performer will tell you that the audience is what makes that performance.
Right.
It's interesting, thinking about what you're saying, and just like TV or movies, except for those things that are taped before a live audience,
right?
You don't have that audience contact in those performances. So how do these guys do that? It's something to ponder. How does a Humphrey Bogart or Charlton Heston or any of these incredible performers, do they create the audience for themselves and imagine themselves performing in front of people? I don't know.
Well, we're going to take a brief break. We'll be right back with Larry Jaffe, and we'll talk some more about poetry. We'll even hear some of his own words. This is What's Peace by Cable. Hi, I am Dustin Pickering from Parrot Literary Corner. You know me, your noble and honest host, and I've got exciting news for you. Last anthology, Series 1, The Literary Parrot, did such a great job. We wanted to continue to provide this community service to our viewers and to our contributors to the program. So please get up and get a copy immediately. You know, if you're in this book, you want to get a copy. If you're not in the book, you want to get a copy and see what we're doing. You want to be excited with us. We want you on this program, and we hope to see you sometime soon on The Literary Parrot. You have to get your hands on this copy. It's amazing. It's an absolutely beautiful anthology meant just for you. Our past guests have been invited back to contribute yet again to this Series 2. We do this quarterly anthology. We will be doing this after our 200 episode milestone. As of this last quarter, we reached 200 episodes, and past that, get up and get a copy immediately. This is the only TV show on earth for creative writers, and our guests are amazing. They're also community activists building from the ground up. This program is for everybody out there who is a creative mind. Order several copies if you can and donate to local libraries. Give them to your friends, cousins, fans, supporters, anybody that you think loves poetry. And it's not just poetry in this book. Remember, this is creative mind. So we have prose, fiction, short stories, essays, artwork, anything you can think of, artistically creative, photographs. Everything in this book is packed. It is packed. It is just absolutely packed. If you want to get your hands on it now. Welcome back to World Inkers Network. I'm Dustin Pickering. Today we have Larry Jaffe. He is going to read us some of his fabulous works on human rights from his latest collection. So Larry, go ahead if you'd like to do that.
Thanks. I just wanted to mention one thing. There is a lot more hope, I think, on the human trafficking effort as the government and private organizations are really working closer together to defeat this. Recently, just here in the Tampa area, a woman was busted for laundering $2.3 million in exploiting children for was a child modeling website. So wow. I just wanted to say there is a lot of hope out there.
Excellent.
All righty. So I'm going to read from two different books, and one is coming out sooner than the other. It's called Only the Shadows Breathe. And I've written a detective story poetically. And the hero, well, you'll find out a little bit about the hero in a moment. So I'm going to read from that first. Life is a lost tombstone where only the shadows breathe. A quaint give you that again. A quaint soiree lost in culture without civilization to back it up. Here mendicants accelerate their yearning and mothers prostrate themselves, falling backwards on tuning forks in annihilation of sin. A complex artifact vanishes in this temple of disquiet. Monks behave indecently. Rabble-rousers show their faith in this place where only the shadows breathe. Behind the shadows lies a rich darkness, deep, thick, and pungently delightful, like cutting-edge chocolates that seep between your lips and invigorate the soul. Behind the shadows lies seduction, too sensual to be conceived by morality, like organic honey licked from sensual fingers. Hatcher, Private Eye. My name is Hatcher, poetic tour de force and gumshoe. I come by my handle honestly, well, sort of. Folks in the know me. You won't find me in yellow pages. I am anything but yellow. I am not your stalking dick. I don't do bullshit assignments, no marital crap, no conjugal anything. I'm who you call when you've got no one else. I'm whom you call when only the shadows breathe. So that's a little excerpt of that.
That's excellent. I especially love the opening phrase that you used in the beginning of the poem. Really captivates and draws attention, into the poem, and and then you go into the voice of the detective, and that's really interesting. So thank you for sharing that.
Thanks. Yeah, that'll be coming out this year.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
And then I'm going to do a little excerpt of Don't Take Candy from Online Strangers.
Okay.
The first section is called Purely Innocent, the Vulnerable. Unfolding lavender. She was always pretty, surrounded, no, suffocated by a mother's love. She danced to rainbows, discussed foreign relations with teddy bears, held high tea with indifferent dolls, always looking for something. He was looking for her. Signs of the times. I want to go out. Can't go out. I want to stay in. Must stay out. Who controls me? I'm just sharp, spiky things. My life is filled with sharp, spiky things. Memories so jagged and melancholy. These pointy objects pierce my heart, my mind, oblique and taut. My thoughts, clear, one moment, obscure another. But these sharp, spiky things somehow remind me of who I am. I'm going to jump to the next section. I'm still jumping. The honey trap. Come out, wherever you are. Predator's lounge. Who, me? I'm just a guy looking to make his way, getting my pound of flesh for my evening meal. Nothing special about me. Kind of good looking, if you know what I mean. But I can charm an oyster out of its shell. Turn it into a pearl with just a look. Yeah, I'm that kind of guy. Not someone you want to bring home to mama. You want to meet me on the down low? Yeah. You want to meet me on the QT? The scent. There is a smell to a fruit when it's ripe for plucking. After all, they are just like fruits hanging from a tree, growing to a certain age, then harvested by the likes of me, just when they are perfectly ripe and hanging low.
So I have an interesting question that you may be able to answer. The perpetrators of these kinds of crimes, sex trafficking and so forth, when they're caught and when the people are face to face with them and can see who they are, do you think they ever have feelings of guilt, or do they show any signs of remorse?
No.
So they're probably pretty sociopathic, psychopathic people.
They don't look at their victims as human.
Wow.
They don't. Yeah. They just see them as something that they can, just like a thief, they steal the soul.
Yeah.
They don't think of that, of individual or ownership, or that there's a live person there that might have feel. They don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure that some of them are on drugs, and that handles any remorse rather rapidly.
Right. So what would your final words to our audience be today?
Be vigilant.
Mm-hmm.
Never give up. Fight back. The the world is at a very critical time right now. I guess it always seems to be that way.
Yeah.
But I think it's more so now because there's all this polarization that's taking place. And I've always been about creating calm, about creating peace, creating community and environment. I think those are the important things. And if we concentrate on those, what should we say, wonderful perfections that we dream up, we're more than likely to get them. If we concentrate on all the negative, we're more than likely to get the negative.
Right.
So we have to stay upbeat. We have to put beauty into the world as artists. We also have to put knowledge and understanding into the world. And that's our job as an artist. It's not just to rhyme some words together,
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
You take a step forward and step up to the plate, and swing for the fences. And maybe sometimes bunt, but that's okay if it moves the runner.
Right.
But I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to give? Any thank yous to friends, family, supporters?
If I start on the list, I'm going to get in trouble. There's the wonderful director of the Beat Poetry group and movement, Debbie. There's my friend William DeVault, who introduced me to you guys. There's just so many names that I will be here for the rest of the night.
Right.
So I think I best just name a couple.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us today. Absolutely. And, enjoy the conversation about as much as you can enjoy such a topic. It's a very difficult and harrowing topic, very much full of horror and mishaps. And just I'm glad to hear that there's something being done, that we're hearing more laws from the government, as you mentioned, private and public cooperation, the sector's cooperating. So that's wonderful to hear that there's some hope out there, and that's our job, as you said, as artists to promote hope and beauty as well as educate the population, build community.
There is, there's volunteer people out there along with the government people who are so dedicated to defeating human trafficking. It's
right.
I've connected up with so many of them as of late, and I'm just so impressed at the care for this situation. I think that if there's anything that comes out of all this, it's that there are people out there that really, really care. And
absolutely.
What more do you want?
Well, thank you for joining us today, Larry. It's been pleasant talking with you. And this is World Inkers Network. We're reaching almost 250 episodes, I believe. If you'd like to support us, you can support us through PayPal to support the arts and our mission as a World Inkers Network. PayPal.me/NYParrot. That's PayPal.me/NYParrot. So right there, you see our support banner. Get out there and help us out with a little extra money if you have any. I know hard times are reaching us, but hey, if you have a little extra to spare, we'd love to hear from you. PayPal.me/NYParrot. If you want to be a guest on the program, you don't necessarily have to be a poet. You can be any kind of writer or creative mind. We'd love to hear from you. So send your paragraph bio and samples of your work and a headshot to Literary Corner at NewYorkParrot.com. You see that running down there at the bottom of the banner, running at the bottom of the screen there. If you'd like to be featured on the show, we'd love to have you as a guest. And also, don't forget, Subscribe, like, share, and comment. If you're watching us on YouTube right now and you have not subscribed, we'd love you as a subscriber. We definitely need more subscribers to this channel. We'd love for you to share our videos and share our content and be in touch with us through Literary Corner at NewYorkParrot.com. Thanks for everyone for joining us today and watching the show. And again, I would love to have you as a subscriber. We would love to have you as a subscriber. Get out there and do some writing. Have an excellent day.
Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot.